UFC Fight Island 6 Ortega vs. the Korean Zombie is live from Yas Island in Abu Dhabi this Saturday night. Now we've got some good ones here. We've got a couple of big names coming back after big layoffs, a light heavyweight pairing that should prove to be a window into the future of the division, and a former champion looking to start again in a new weight class. We've got a heavyweight contender looking to climb the ranks, and a featherweight fight with real title implications. It's going to be fun, so let's get right into it. Here's my predictions for UFC Fight Island 6. The first fight of the main card is a featherweight bout between Thomas Almeida and Jonathon Martinez. Oh boy, this is a tough one to pick, but it should be fun to watch. The good thing about Almeida is that he's freaking exciting. He's a good striker that's also very hittable, just walking towards his opponent with his hands down. It makes for a fun fight, but it's not always the best strategy, and there are a few more troubling chinks in Almeida's armor. Right off the bat, this is his first fight in over 2.5 years, and he hasn't won a fight in nearly 4. But the excitement. Of 8 UFC fights, 6 have finished in KOs. These include head kicks and flying knees, but he is 1-3 over his last 4 fights. Thomas Almeida came into the UFC as a very promising 16-0 fighter, but he's had some pretty big failures since joining the world's biggest promotion. Now there's no shame in losing to Cody Garbrandt, Jimmy Rivera, or Rob Font, but he hasn't beaten any names of that value, which give a fairly good picture of his ceiling. I don't see Jonathon Martinez on par with those 3, but he's pretty good. One of the red flags I see in Martinez was that last fight against Frankie Sands, where he weighed in 5.5 pounds overweight. Half a pound can hardly be excused, but 5.5, that's ridiculous. I don't know why Martinez came in so overweight for that fight, but we have to assume that he has some issues with the cut. It would have been smart if Almeida had requested that this bout take place at bantamweight and tried to get Martinez drained. Martinez has proven durable though, never losing by KO or submission. And that's the kind of fighter that's going to give Almeida problems. These guys are going to bang it out. And if it's a question of durability, I think Martinez has the advantage. Almeida has been rocked in pretty much every fight he's ever been in, multiple times in some of them. His wide open, hands down style just kind of encourages it. And with so many troubling facts here, it seems the deck is kind of stacked against Almeida. The long layoff, the questionable chin, the wrong weight class, etc. It's easy to see how Martinez wins this one, but the bottom line is, I think Almeida's better. This is one of those fights that can make you look stupid when making a prediction. I expect the winner, whoever it is, to be pretty dominant, and I don't expect to hear the final bell. I'm going to ignore all the clues that are being presented and simply go with my gut here. I'm calling Thomas Almeida by first round KO. Next up is a light heavyweight bout between Jimmy Crute and Modestas Bukauskas. This is a bad matchup for the rising star in Bukauskas. Jimmy Crute is solid in his stand-up game, and if it stays on its feet, it's going to be one hell of a fight. But Crute is also a superb wrestler, and if he takes it there, it may be a little more lopsided. We saw Bukauskas in his last fight get a controversial win with downward elbow strikes that may or may not have been illegal. You probably remember it, but it was at the very end of the round, and his opponent, Andreas Michailidis, had a very unfortunate fall out of the octagon door as he leaned against it, and that prompted the referee to call a fight. I think Jimmy Crute is going to be looking to shoot, so he's also got to be looking to avoid those elbows, because that Michailidis fight was not the first time Bukauskas showed those things. I like Bukauskas as the stand-up fighter, and I think he's got a bright future in the UFC, but he's got a really tough test in front of him. Crute is a Contender Series alum, and he's already logged 4 fights in the UFC, winning 3 of them, and all 4 fights have been against pretty good competition. Paul Craig was his first UFC opponent, which is a pretty tough draw, and he managed to submit the submission expert. Then he knocked out Sam Alvey twice in 1 fight. Then he got the only loss of his career by way of a Peruvian necktie courtesy of Misha Serkinov. But hey, look, these things happen sometimes. He won his rebound fight in dominant fashion with a first-round submission. Jimmy Crute is getting better. He's doing all the right things, and he's getting recognized for it. Maybe because of his Australian connection, maybe just because he's really good. But for one reason or another, the UFC's really pushed this guy. The question of this fight is, can Bukauskas avoid those takedowns? If not, it may turn into a fairly dominant win for Crute, and if he can defend them, it still doesn't mean he's out of the woods, but it does give him a much better chance. The fight fan in me wants to see a stand-up bang fest, but I think Crute knows his easiest path to victory. Unlike Michelitas, Crute is not just going to shoot a double leg and leave his head resting on the hip. He's pretty clever and versatile with his takedowns. I think he's going to get them, avoid damage, and put on a clinic. I've got Crute winning this one, and I think he's going to make it look pretty easy. I'm calling Jimmy Crute by a somewhat lopsided unanimous decision. Next, we move to the women's flyweight division for a fight between number 1 Katlyn Chookagian and divisional newcomer Jessica Andrade. Andrade is moving weight divisions again, this time going up to join the 125-pounders. She is, of course, a former 115-pound champion, but she started her career and spent many fights as a 135 fighter. So she's proven she can handle the bigger girls, and Katlyn Chookagian will be much bigger. Caitlyn is listed as 8 inches taller and having a 6-inch reach advantage. But Andrade is the type of fighter where that's really not going to matter too much. For a 29-year-old female fighter, Jessica has been doing this for quite a while, and she's seen some stuff. She's the younger fighter, but she debuted in the UFC a whole year before Caitlyn even started her pro career. And she's the more credentialed fighter too, winning 7 post-fight awards and obviously holding UFC gold for a short time. Chookagian did fight for the flyweight belt earlier this year, but she's unable to get it, and she's never won a post-fight award. For those who know Caitlyn, that's not very surprising. She's not exactly known for her thrilling fight style. In fact, she's not logged one finish during her 10-fight UFC career. The only time the full 15 wasn't realized was that loss in the title fight. Chookagian is very much your standard 15-minute fighter. A volume striker that really doesn't do much damage, good footwork and movement with adequate defense, and a pretty good wrestling game. This type of fighter has a tendency to get labeled as boring, but they're very difficult to beat. So that's Chookagian's category. How should we label Andrade? To me, Andrade is in a category that she shares with only 2 other female fighters, the former champ Cris Cyborg and current champ Amanda Nunes. And the label on that file reads, "Fights like a man." I'm not trying to be sexist, and I'm definitely not trying to lend credence to the demoralizing phrase "fights like a girl." I know plenty of girls that can kick my ass. I'm talking about the body mechanics that Andrade fights with, the power, speed, and violence that just isn't as common in the female ranks. The way Andrade moves her shoulders and hips is just masculine. How many other females have we seen even attempt the type of slam that won her the belt? Jessica Andrade is one of the most athletic fighters in any of the female divisions, and her strength has been proven to last every round. With 7 wins by KO, 7 by submission, and 6 by decision, she's also one of the most versatile and dangerous fighters. Again, Chookagian is gonna be hard to beat, but if we look at those 3 points from earlier, I think we see that Andrade answers all the questions. Chookagian's a volume striker. Yeah, but Andrade hits a hell of a lot harder. She's got good movement. Yeah, but Andrade is always moving forward and likes to blitz. She's a pretty good wrestler. Yeah, but Andrade has choked the life out of several people. Andrade is as physically strong and violent as anyone in the women's division, and I think flyweight is going to look good on her. In fact, of all the girls on the flyweight roster, I'm thinking Jessica is the one that gives champion Valentina Shevchenko her toughest test. Jessica can leave the strawweight division, they're going to be fine without her, but the flyweights need more contenders. I want her to win this fight, and I think she's going to. I'm calling Jessica Andrade by 3rd round TKO. Next up is the heavyweight bout between ranked number 12 contender Cyril and Anche Delia. This was supposed to be Cyril versus Shamil Abdurakhimov. Or maybe it wasn't supposed to be, it was cancelled and rescheduled several times. But but that would have been a good one with Cyril ranked at number 12 and Shamil ranked at number 9. I think Cyril would have won that fight and climbed the rankings a few spots, and that would have been good for the division. In preparation for the Miocic DC trilogy, I made a video that I called What's Next for the Heavies, where I talked about the division opening up and who the next contenders would be. It's a pretty cool video, so check it out if you haven't already. I'll throw up a link to it at the end of this one. Well, obviously Ngannou is part of the next heavyweight chapter. Curtis Blades and Derek Lewis are both firmly cemented in those pages. And since the trilogy fight, we've seen Alistair Overeem and Jairzinho Rozenstruik make their claims with dominant wins. A big, impressive win over Abdurakhimov was Cyril's chance to insert himself into the next chapter too. At 30 years old and only 6-0 in his professional MMA career, Cyril's still got plenty of time to get there, but it feels like he's missing his opportunity. I guess he's just tired of waiting because there's really not a lot to prove against this UFC newcomer. If you look at Tapology, you'll see them ranking Cyril as the number 15 best heavyweight in the world and ranking Delia all the way down at number 74. The only way Cyril strengthens his case as a heavyweight contender is with a quick and dominant win, but that's not really Cyril's style. He's a different kind of heavyweight in the sense that he doesn't fight like a heavyweight. He's not a forward plotter, blow-for-blow heavy hitter. He prefers to use his footwork, keep the pace fairly slow, and choose his shots. He's also way better at grappling and submissions than your typical big guy. Cyril is supposed to win this fight, but anything can happen when it comes to the heavies. At 17-3, Delia has a pretty impressive record, but upon closer inspection, you'll find that he's crushed more cans than a trash compactor. Several of his opponents had losing records at the time that he fought them. Others had records like 31-31 or 12-9. Those are real numbers. And still others had less than 2 professional fights. And he has had a loss to Marcin Tybura, whom I don't think is even close to Gane's level. Like I said, Cyril is supposed to win this fight. I think he will, but I'm not sure it's going to prove much. I'm calling Cyril Gane by second round submission. The main event of the night is a featherweight bout between number 2 contender Brian Ortega and number 4 Chan Sung Jung. This is a really great fight with title implications. The number 1 contender is still Max Holloway, but he's dropped 2 in a row to champion Alex Volkanovski, so it stands to reason that the next title shot would fall to the number 2 ranked guy. As of right now, that's Ortega, but he's got to fight for that spot this weekend. You've got to imagine that whoever wins this one probably gets the next title shot. These 2 fighters have a combined 16 UFC fights, and guess how many have gone to decision? Frickin' goose egg, not 1. But they have had 14 post-fight bonuses between them. Those are insane statistics. By the numbers, this one is sure to deliver, and by the matchup, it looks pretty promising too. We all know how good Ortega is with his jiu-jitsu and submissions, but let's not forget that Zombie has 8 submissions also, which include a Darce choke, a couple of arm triangles, and of course that infamous twister. Sure, Ortega is a better grappler, but Zombie is no slouch. Ortega has improved in his stand-up greatly since joining the UFC, and you can bet that's where Zombie is going to want to keep it, and I think he'll be able to. As good as Ortega is at grappling, he's really not the best at initiating the takedowns and wrestling his opponent. He just kind of waits on your shot, then works at his position. And Zombie's not going to shoot. He's going to press forward and give us that finely walked line between aggressive onslaught and carefully picked strikes. Ortega has shown a phenomenal chin as evidenced by that Holloway fight, but he has to use it way too often. Ortega typically starts slow and eats more strikes than you would think necessary, and the Korean Zombie is not the guy whose punches you want to eat. Ortega's been off for nearly 2 years, and a lot of things can happen in that time, but man, he took some damage in that last one. I've heard the argument that a complete knocked out of your body and into time and space KO is way better for you than a 10 or 15 minute beatdown, and it makes sense. We'll just have to see how Ortega has grown since then. Regardless, I do think this is a good matchup for Zombie. He's always been a quick starter, and Ortega, well, he hasn't. Ortega has great submissions, but Zombie's not going to shoot. Zombie has always hit super hard, and Ortega has always been hit often. Ortega's chin is likely going to be on full display again on Saturday night. I don't see him getting knocked cold and stiff, but I can definitely see a TKO or another referee stoppage. I'm calling the Korean Zombie by 3rd round TKO. So I'm sitting here editing this video together when I get the word that the Gondelia fight is off. I haven't heard the reason, but I did check out MMA Junkie, and unfortunately the rumor appears to be true. I hate it for him, but Cyril is missing another opportunity and is going to have to wait even longer. So it's a bummer, but the fight's been canceled. So who's going to move up to the main card? I'm scrambling a bit here, but I'm going to provide 2 more predictions real quick of the most likely fights to get transferred up. So let's go to the lightweight division for a bout between Matthias Gamo and Yurum Kokatela. If I got that name right, I should get a fight bonus. Well, I'm not going to get into much detail here. I didn't do my research and I really don't have any notes. Like a cage fighter, I'm just simply reacting and letting my experience lead the way. This is a super fun fight and I was already looking forward to it. Matthias is a KSW double champ, which is pretty impressive. And Kokatela is the latest wave of Georgian fighters. He trains with several good UFC fighters, the most prolific being Hamzat himself, so he should be fairly well adapted. Both of these guys will probably make a pretty good go of it in the UFC, but only one can win this fight, so I'm going to call Matthias Gamo by unanimous decision. The other fight I find most likely to fill in is in the women's flyweight division between Gillian Robertson and Pauline Boytelia. I really like both of these girls, but we haven't seen Boytelia in a while. Gillian, on the other hand, has remained very active. The theme on this main card has kind of been clashing styles, and this one does fit the mold. Gillian is a grappler with 6 submission wins to her 1 KO, and Pauline is a striker with 6 KOs and no subs. Pauline does have good power for this division, but Gillian's been getting better as a stand-up fighter too. She's also been improving her takedowns and wrestling in general, which is where I think the biggest advantage is going to be. Pauline has shown a tendency to slow down in the later rounds, which is always worse when you're dealing with a grappler. I think this one is going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it, but I think Gillian's got the right stuff to get it done. I'm calling Gillian Robertson by 2nd round submission. So there's my predictions for UFC Fight Island 6. After the event, we'll make the next episode of the Real Winners and Losers, which is kind of a recap of the event and which fighters shined the most and won the most. You'll be able to see that on Monday afternoon as usual. And check back in for MMA related videos that I'm going to be posting throughout the week. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you can be notified of all this content as soon as it's released. Plus, you'll make me feel really good about myself. You can consider it your good deed for the day. We of course have Gaethje and Khabib coming up next weekend, so we've got a lot to talk about. Till next time.